Welcome back to the latest edition of the Saints Insider Podcast. My name is Luke Johnson. I'm filling in as host today. I'm joined by Matthew Paris and Jeff Duncan. It is Friday, March 14th, and we came here directly from the Saints facility where they introduced new free agent signee Justin Reid today. Guys, I thought that was like an entertaining conversation at the very least, and maybe a little bit revealing. We'll get into that. We'll get into the NFL rumor mill, which has exploded this morning with regard to the Saints and a high-profile potential free agent that they're interested in, and we'll talk some more about some other potential moves the Saints could make as free agency draws on here. But fellas, welcome back to the show. How you doing today?
Doing well. It's been a busy week.
It has been. I feel like I've said that for about the last 12 weeks, but
free agency always kind of crazy, right?
Yeah, and I feel like this year has been maybe a little bit more so than it has been in recent years, which is, the Saints kind of tried to warn us about that, but I didn't really believe them until I saw it. And then I saw it, and I was like, well, I should have been ready for this.
Yeah. No, there's a lot of stuff to dive into.
All right, well, let's get into it. So Justin Reid today, obviously earlier this week, I think on day 2 of the tampering period, right? They signed Justin Reid to a 3-year, $31 million contract, bringing in a new starting safety. And today he was introduced. They brought him in with a bunch of his family there. Obviously, he is a Louisiana native. So he had, I think, mom, dad, Eric Reid, his older brother, a bunch of kids. I didn't know whose kids were whose. But that was kind of the central theme of today's press conference was, Louisiana guy coming back home to his roots and playing for the team he grew up rooting for, Duncan.
Yeah, and you can see why they were attracted to him, right? I mean, he's the kind of guy that's been in the league a while. He's got skins on the wall. Obviously, I think they're looking to him for leadership at the back end, along with Tyrann Mathieu. Played with Tyrann for 1 year. He's won Super Bowls. He fits into the kind of prototype I think Kellen Moore's looking for, smart guy. So it makes a lot of sense to me. He is a little on the older side for a free agent, but he seems to be playing better as he's gotten older. At least, you look around the league, the analytics, he's actually improving a little bit as he's gotten older, as he's learned the league. But I think it's a good fit in Brandon Staley's system. When you talk to Staley, you hear the word versatility and flexibility a lot, and that's something that Reid talked about a lot about today, kind of playing that joker position where he's going to be a chess piece in his scheme.
But before we get too much into this, I do want to bring you kind of hit on it there, and I wanted to ask your thoughts on this because look, they overhauled the entire coaching staff, right? There's only I think 5. Keith Williams was the only one, the only main assistant from last year's team who's on this year's team, and they brought Joel Thomas and Brendan Nugent back, who were previously on this team, but the entire front office is still the same. So when I look at Justin Reid and when I heard him speak today, he screamed to me Saints kind of guy, and I want to hear your take on that.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think they're trying to get back to some of that. Not that the locker room has ever been bad. I don't think it's ever been bad, but I think they're realizing this is going to be a little bit of a difficult transition. And it's probably not going to happen overnight like it happened in 2000 or 2006. I think that's the pie-in-the-sky hope. But if it's going to be a difficult transition, you want guys like Justin Reid in the locker room to steward the younger players through the difficult times. That's the sense I get in just hearing the way the coaches are talking. And certainly I thought today he put forth a leadership, accountability type front that I think they're going to need going forward. And he's an impressive guy, but I knew that going in. He was the kind of guy that, and look, it speaks also well that the Eagles were one of the teams that were pursuing him, and obviously the contract probably helped. And they may have to do that, right? They may have to overpay a little bit for a player at this stage. We're going to talk a little bit later about another player that they may have to overpay if they want to get him in the building, and that's what you have to do when you're at the position the Saints are in right now.
What's your take on this, real quick? On that specific thing right there.
What, that they might have to overpay?
Well, I think we're all probably in agreement on that.
Yeah, I would say so, and I also think it's a way that they maybe shifted their strategy if they missed out on Ward, or or
Charvarius Ward you're talking about.
Ward, yeah. Like, or what positions are they trying to prioritize? Re-signing Chase Young instead of Paulson Adebo. I think, the way the Saints are structured with their salary cap, you have to be selective, and you're seeing that strategy, and I don't think it's a bad one.
All right, we are going to dive a little bit more into Justin Reid and Chase Young here on the show. But before we do that, we're going to take a quick 30-second break, and when we come back, we'll go into a little bit more on those players. Yeah. All right.
There's no better place to parlay than Caesars Sportsbook. With quick picks, you can tap right into pre-built, ready-to-bet parlays right from the home screen. And if you miss tip-off, no worries. You can play same-game parlays live during the action. Plus, it's never been easier to find and bet on the biggest matchups of the day, so you can keep up with all the action. Caesars Sportsbook, proud partner of the NBA and the only sportsbook app with Caesars Rewards. Download it today.
We are back. We are back here on the Saints Insider podcast. I think there's a lot more to dive into with Justin Reid, and we also got a chance to talk to Chase Young, and Matt wrote a nice story on NOLA.com about Chase yesterday that you can go read. But first on Justin Reid, I kind of want to. He talked about playing in Brandon Staley's defense a little bit today, and he has some familiarity with it. He played in the AFC West against Brandon Staley's Chargers. He's familiar with what Brandon Staley did when he was with the Rams. How do you kind of view his fit within this defense? We don't really know a lot about yet, but we kind of have an inkling based off of what Staley's done in the past.
Well, yeah, I think Jalen Ramsey. He mentioned him specifically today in that Chargers defense, where he's kind of a chess.
Jalen Ramsey was in the Rams.
Rams. I'm sorry, in that that kind of joker position where you can play him down or play him in coverage. Derwin James with the Chargers. I can see him playing that kind of role of where Tyron's going to be the center fielder, and look, Brandon Staley talked about that the other day of having that flexibility because everyone's in. I think he said 70% you're in dime packages right now. That's why I think people are getting so caught up in the 3-4, 4-3. I don't think it's going to be that big a deal. I really don't. I think the way and I thought it was interesting that he refused to kind of commit to that the other day. He asked specifically about it. He said, "Well, we want to wait till we get the personnel in here and see what we've got." So I think the way the Saints are attacking this right now is smart. Let's just get good players in the building. We'll figure out what scheme we're gonna play. You're gonna be in these sub packages so often anyway. It's just I think we all get caught up in that a little too much, and it sounds to me like the whole key to his defense is kind of being flexible and playing a lot of sub packages, which Dennis Allen did a lot of too. Let's face it.
Yeah, I mean most teams play almost exclusively. Mm-hmm. Nickel or dime packages now, just because that's the way the NFL's going.
And the down lineman can be 3 or 4. It's just it's a little overrated. I think the scheme in the way people play these days.
Yeah, but I do think there's an interesting point to be made about versatility and Justin Reid in particular. You go look at like the PFF breakdown. I think probably about 60% of his snaps came as the box safety last year, but he did play a lot of deep safety. He played some, up on the line. He played some in the slot. So he's somebody who you can kind of move all over the field a little bit.
Yeah, and Tyrann Mathieu the same way. I mean, before Tyrann Mathieu got to New Orleans, I mean, he's been versatile in New Orleans, but before that, coming from that Chiefs defense, he was asked to do a lot of the same things. And so I think they play well together. They have experience playing together in Houston. And so we'll see. I think Reid's fit here, though, it helps them address a lot of their weaknesses on defense. I think that was an important part of it, is that he is a run stuffer, that he called himself like a toll. You have to pay the toll if you're
down the hallway,
going down the hall.
Yeah. Toll, yeah.
And he called himself like a physical force. And so those are, you think about how often this team struggled to tackle last year, and he's replacing Will Harris, who actually was one of their better tacklers.
Right.
And it's just one of those spots that you need that from that position, and I think he provides it.
The other thing I think he does, and you touched on it, Luke, is I think he now frees up Tyrann Mathieu a little more, because I think they felt like Tyrann had to play a lot on the back end, and one of his strengths is playing up near the line because he's so instinctive. And now I think you've got these two guys that can kind of be interchangeable in a lot of ways, and gets back to what we talked about, where Brandon Staley wants to be really flexible and have versatile players like that. I definitely think that we'll see. I think we'll see Tyrann Mathieu a little more freed up with Reid there, another experienced guy you can count on.
Yeah, I agree with that. One thing I kind of want to touch on, just because it was like such a big part of Reid's press conference today. Look, the Saints do have a lot of guys with Louisiana ties on the roster now.
I know.
They got Tyrann Mathieu, Justin Reid, Devon Godshaw, the recently acquired defensive tackle. They brought back Will Clapp, Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Look, this is a talent-rich state, right? And there's a lot of really, really good football players with Louisiana roots in the NFL. I'm curious, like, if they could actually, like, turn this thing around. Like Reid was talking about, like, he had, like, his whole family, like, signed with the Saints, and he had, like, 1,500 unread text messages.
That seemed high to me, by the way.
I don't know, man.
1,500.
Professional athletes are different, man.
Yeah.
1,500?
Yeah.
I'd believe it.
Group chat probably popping off. My group chat goes insane if I don't read messages, which is constant for me. I'm never reading. But, like, what I'm trying to get at here is, like, if they could turn this around a little bit, I mean, is it possible they could, be like a destination spot for some of these guys?
Well, I think they're just leaning into their advantages, their strength.
Yeah.
That's a strength they've got.
Yeah.
They can play to. And so in free agency where it's competitive, right? And right now they're not winning Super Bowls, so they got to lean into something. And I think that's smart. And they've done that in the past. I mean, that's DeMario Davis, the guy from, the Jackson area. I mean, Willie Gay, we've seen it happen over time. That's smart for them to do that. Because right now they can't sell, we're a Super Bowl team, take a pay cut, take less here, hometown discount. But I do think leaning into that right now where they're at, and then you got to win. And then you start winning, then you kind of play back into that, I think. Smart move, I think.
By the way, I have 236 unread text messages. So
You're a monster.
I definitely believe
From the Justin Reid press conference?
No, just like, yeah. So the people
On
telling
one
me to
event?
come home, yeah.
On one event, 236?
No,
That's what I'm saying.
a lot of it is just, maybe he's getting all these tolls.
I've got 57,000 unread emails.
Oh, actually, I only have 188. That's very surprising for me.
God,
But I mean,
we're really doing this right now.
My point is, I can't believe we're doing this.
Yeah. Okay. 0 unread texts, 8 unread emails.
Okay, actually,
Monsters.
I'm sorry. 56,147 is what this says in the
Yeah,
box.
I like
all
that.
right. All
For
right.
emails.
That doesn't mean
Let's
we're
get this show back on the
popular.
rails. We are not as popular as Justin Reid. I can guarantee you that. We're not as cool as him.
Speak for yourself.
Shut up, looking pretty dapper. Come on, man.
got my trues on.
Yeah, it's just to dish the
That's-
hokas.
Got my shoe game going
That's
today.
all you need to say is you got
got my
your shoes
shoe game
on.
going, baby.
All right. Chase Young also spoke this week. Matt, you wrote the story on him. I think one of the biggest takeaways from his press conference was, look, he stayed healthy last year. That was a huge question about him. It's probably the whole reason he signed with the Saints last year is because teams were maybe a little concerned about that health. So can you kind of tell us a little bit about what he was saying about staying healthy, how important it was, and maybe how beneficial that could be for him going into 2025?
Yeah, he said that he always kind of tried to take care of his body, and I remember that even from covering him in Washington. He would take forever for his media availabilities because he was always getting a massage and like doing those sorts of things. But specifically,
I've got to do treatment. It's the word every beat writer, the phrase every beat writer hates. Yeah,
it would take so
convenient
long
excuse,
in the Zoom era, man. Anyway, he bought something called a PEMF machine, which helps with inflammation and stuff. And he said it cost $30,000, and to have it at his house. He specifically bought it last year. He kind of kept it. He didn't clarify that in the presser, but I went and checked back with Saints PR, who did me a favor and asked them for me. So thank you to them. But he bought this machine. It really helped, I think, him stay healthy. And I actually think that's part of why he got that contract. I mean, he had one of the best years of his career, but I don't think it's I think those are correlated. You stay healthy, you're a good player. Like it goes hand in hand. And I think it was important for him to show that he could play all 17 games.
and now he's healthy going into the offseason.
Yeah, and look, he's also. I think the other thing that's important is he's still young. You know, he's not
25.
Like, yeah, he's still like in his prime, and I think that's important, man, to find those guys in free agency that are in like their mid to late 20s. That's the sweet spot for an NFL player. They've been in the league long enough to know how to play, but they're still physically able to do it. You know, they're not over the hill yet, and I think that's a top priority for finding a guy like Chase Young. I mean, he's still got to produce more. I mean, that's the thing that I've always kind of had against him is, you know, I don't care about these pressures and all that analytic stuff. I mean, like, get the guy down. You know, get the guy down. Right. And I mean, everybody faces that same challenge, and when it's happened one year, it's one thing, but it's happened throughout his career.
Right. I said this on our last show, but I actually looked it up for the story. Of the top 8 guys in pressures, it was him and Jared Verse, who was a rookie, that didn't have double-digit sacks last year.
Yeah, so I know. It's been that same thing with Chase Young every year, just about. You know, it's the same thing we talked about when they signed him. So, but look, he's still young, and I think it was clear. You could sense that, like, somewhere around mid-season or something, he really started kind of getting into being
somewhere around the time a certain coach was
put out and I think they're banking on that. I mean, I think they're banking on this guy's better, you know. And I didn't mention this, but I mean, I think I told you all offline, but like when I was talking to Jim Haslett the other day, I mean, he was breaking down the Saints, and I mean, he goes, I don't know why they only won 5 games last year. He goes, but they got better talent, and they're both lines than what it showed. And he talked specifically about the front 7. And that's where Jim played. Jim played linebacker, of course, for the Bills. But he thinks they're more talented than what they're producing. And I'm sure that's what the Saints are kind of banking on. Brandon Staley, I bet's feeling the same way.
Yeah, and I think, look, Chase Young is 25. I think when you're looking at edge rushers, prime for those guys, it's like 26, 27, 28.
Yep.
That's I think when you get the best production out of those types of players. So we'll see if the Saints can get some of that out of him. Okay, let's move on a little bit to the news of the day, which who knows by the time this posts might be old news. But look, report came out from The Athletic this morning that said the Saints were one of 3 teams that were showing some interest in Cooper Kupp, the former Los Angeles Rams wide receiver, the former AP Offensive Player of the Year. 4th team has emerged since then. Denver Broncos are apparently also in touch with Cooper Kupp. But guys, let's not try to see through the crystal ball and think what Cooper Kupp might be seeing in the Saints. And let's just talk about what he is as a player at this stage of his career. He's 31, I think. He's had a number of injuries the last couple of years. I think last year he finished with about 700 receiving yards, 6 touchdowns, and his production really waned toward the end of the year. So, what do you think of Cooper Kupp as a player? Should the Saints be interested in Cooper Kupp? Does he fit their roster? And if you do think they should be interested, at kind of what price point would you be kind of buying in on him?
Well, I think he still has production left as a player, but every year in free agency or even during the season, there seems to be one player who gets all the attention, and then once they sign, they do little to do with it. And I'm thinking of specifically Devontae Adams last season. We had so many conversations around him, and his stint with the Jets was disappointing. Jadeveon Clowney always seemed like an annual candidate for this category. And to me, he feels like that. Now, if he signs with the Saints, I'm not saying it would be a terrible fit. I just think for the money, to me, let's say it costs $15 million. $15 million per year.
Yeah, it's too rich for me.
Too rich, but I would rather them try and sign, say, Keenan Allen and a guard with that $15 million than just him alone. I do think receiver is a position of need for them. I don't think it's I could see why they would do it. I just don't. I really question how much he has left in his career.
Dunk.
But I think his skill set fits perfectly with Olave and Shaheed.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what they're thinking, right? They're thinking this is our slot guy. Our guy's going to work underneath. He's never going to. He made his bones in the league by being a great route runner. Great hands, but the injuries have taken a toll on him. There's no question. So what's the price tag for him now? The Saints going to have to overpay to bring him in to compete with who are the other teams? Seattle and Dallas are the other main
Seattle and
competition?
Dallas. Although Dallas has been kind of since that report came out, it's been kind of cooled on Dallas. Like they were in on him, but maybe
Okay.
not.
Yeah. So look, and he's from Washington State, so Seattle makes a lot of sense, right? He's from the Pacific Northwest. At this stage of his career, I could see him wanting to play there. I think he fits in well with their offense as well. So, I mean, Clint Kubiak is the coordinator out there. We know him well. But I would not overpay. So I'm with Matt on that. Like, if you can get him in here, whatever it is, $10 million a year, then that makes sense to me. But where the Saints are at right now, that this seems like something that would be a 2-year experiment with him. But he is the grandson of great Jake Kupp, who is Saints Hall of Famer, one of the very first teams here. But what version of Cooper Kupp are we getting at this stage?
So I just looked it up. So he won the Offensive Player of the Year in 2001 when he 2021 when he went absolutely insane. In the 3 seasons since then, he's averaged 11 games per year, and his per season average is 67 receptions, 753 yards, and 6 touchdowns. He'll turn 32 in June. So I'm with you guys on this. I think when he's right, he's a great player, but we just haven't seen that out of him in quite some time. And I don't see how you could go more than 2 years.
Right.
So you'd be talking about a 34-year-old receiver for a team that's already we've talked ad nauseum about how old this roster is.
Well, and also, like, I always have real concerns when good organizations, and I think the Rams are one, don't try to work something out. Like, let's get him back here. I would look at him similarly to, say, Cam Jordan or somebody. Like, we want him in the building, right? I'm sure the Rams want Cooper Kupp in the building, but at what price?
Right.
And they can't work something out. It always gives me a little concern,
Yeah.
Well,
and like I don't want to dismiss Cooper Kupp as a football player right now either.
Yeah, he's solid.
I think he's still a good football player, and I agree with you that I think that he would definitely add something to this offense that it has been missing as a complement to their 2 young, fast receivers. They've needed somebody like Cooper Kupp who could be just like a football vacuum, right? Somebody who's going to make plays on clutch downs when you need it.
Well, remember we went through what was the guy's name from the Raiders? Everybody wanted
Hunter Renfrow.
Yeah, he's like that version of him, but maybe better.
I think a much better, bigger bodied version.
Right.
Too.
So I think Derek Carr probably lobbied for Hunter Renfrow. It didn't happen. And one thing I definitely think is true is I think this is a Kellen Moore push, which I think is interesting. Right. He's right away saying, like, this is a guy I think would fit in my scheme.
And from the same part of the country too.
Yeah. Yeah. So I could see that for a lot of reasons, but it's got to be the right price right now.
Yeah, I mean, to add to your Rams point, it's not specifically that they said, all right, like, get out of here. They said, all right, get out of here, and we're going to give Tutu Atwell $10 million. Like, they were willing to pay that money somewhere. Like,
and they gave Devontae Adams, I think, $20 million a year.
That's
too.
one that stands out to me because Devontae Adams I look at very similarly.
Yeah.
Like, he's a big name, and we've seen it. I mean, Mike Thomas here, right? I mean, these big name receivers that kind of drop off in their careers. It's sexy. We all play fantasy football. It sounds good, but, like, what are they really getting at that stage of their careers?
Devontae Adams has been still a good player the last couple of years.
What did he have with the Jets?
With the Jets, in 11 games, he had almost 900 receiving yards. 7 touchdowns.
Well, he had the quarterback throwing the ball like every time too.
Right. Yeah.
Well, yeah, and he's had he had about 10 targets a game with the Jets, and he's got 5 straight 1,000-yard seasons. And it would be 7 if not for a 12-game season in 2019 with the Packers. Yeah. So I think Devontae Adams is still, I think at this stage of his career, a better player than Cooper Kupp is. I can get that, but I do also think, to Matt's point, you've got a number of these guys on the market right now. Keenan Allen would be really good in this offense as a complementary piece. All of these veteran receivers who are out there, I don't think any team wants them as their number 1. But if you could get them in here as your number 3 at a reasonable price point, I think it makes a lot of sense. I just don't the price has got to be right.
And the other thing that I think we've talked about in the program before, how much confidence do you have in Olave to be your number one to hold up. I mean, I think we all agree he's certainly capable, but those health concerns are serious. So is receiver, if you can't work out a veteran guy, and I think that's clear that they're going to try to get some kind of veteran in here, like the Cedric Wilson type role, but do you still have to use a draft pick on a receiver? I think you probably do. You know, just I don't know if number 9, but like somewhere high in this draft, I think they've got to get another young receiver to compete along with like Bub Means, right?
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Yeah.
I mean, Chris Olave played 8 games last year. Cooper Kupp played 12. And if you're saying, all right, we have some injury concerns about our receivers, let's bring in a guy here. I don't know if Cooper Kupp makes the most sense for that
fair
part
point.
Specifically.
Averaged 11 games per year over the last 3 years. So
And Shaheed's going to have issues, I think. He's a smaller guy.
Yep.
You know, he's thin-bodied. I mean, it's just the reality of playing in this league, man. Olave's not a big guy. That was a concern coming out of Ohio State, was his size, you know. So they need to think about that. They probably need to add a big-bodied, you know, skilled receiver to go with what they've got right now.
So that dovetails nicely to our last little segment here. What's next for the Saints? So I think we can all agree on some positions that are still want type positions for this organization. They shored up the defensive backfield a little bit by signing Isaac Yiadom to a 3-year deal earlier this week. Yiadom is a nice player. He had a nice season in 2023 when he was kind of pressed into the starting lineup for the Saints. But I don't know if they're signing him to that deal to be their starting corner. So I don't know if they're necessarily done there yet. So let's just I'm going to put you all on the spot. I didn't let you all know this ahead of time. But if you were ranking kind of like the hierarchy of needs for the Saints roster at this stage of free agency with a draft coming up in about 6 weeks, where would you kind of put it?
I would pick guard number 1. I mean, that's the biggest question mark. Lucas Patrick is a free agent, and you would argue that maybe they would want an upgrade there anyway.
I would agree.
There are several compelling guards on the market right now. Mekhi Becton, who Kellen Moore coached in Philadelphia, is still available. And then I would put receiver at number 2, just to get that third option, to get some insurance for Chris Olave and Rashid Shaheed. And then cornerback is probably number 3 for me.
What are you calling
franchise quarterback not available? No, I mean
they're not in on the Russell Wilson, Aaron Rodgers sweepstakes right now.
Yeah, look, I think those are exactly. I mean, I think defensive tackle still kind of an issue.
But like, you know, do you think I would agree that it is probably an area that is not strong on the team. But do you think they're going to get new ones considering they traded for Godshaw, they re-signed Nathan Shepard, and then they messed with the contract for Colin Saunders, saying he'll be back. So you're bringing back your top 3 from last year with Saunders, Brzee, and Shepard, and then you get Godshaw, and you already have Christian Boyd on the roster. You think they're going to continue adding?
I think in the draft they could. You know,
I mean, I would put edge rusher there too if
big
the
time,
draft.
Yeah. I think corner's a bigger need probably than anything else.
So you put corner number 1.
Yeah, I would say corner just because of the priority of that position in the league. You know, you have to have 3 really good ones you're playing. I mean, unless you think Yiadom's a serviceable guy, but I don't think he's that's a guy I think if I'm playing the Saints and that's the 3 they trot out, Taylor, McKinstry, and Yiadom, I'm going to be going at Yiadom. You know what I mean? Remember how last year teams just picked on certain guys? Adebo got picked on. I mean, that's what people are going to do in this league, and I'm not sure you can feel comfortable with him as your third starter right now, which is what basically it is. So I think corner's got to be a top pick. Like at number 9, that's where I think they might go, or edge.
Yes,
because who's the edge? Who's the edge on this team that's going to Chase Young? That's your best option right now, probably.
So I don't think I would go corner at number 9, just because I don't know if there's a guy I'd feel really comfortable taking at number 9.
Will Johnson,
who's up there?
I don't think I'm comfortable taking Will Johnson at 9. I think I actually like Jahdae Barron more than him, and I think Barron's more of like a mid first round pick. Anyways,
maybe just take the best player at 9, right?
See, I think they got to just even though
can't miss on him. They can't miss on number 9 this year.
All right, so you got corner number 1,
right?
What do you have number 2?
Guard, definitely.
Guard,
yeah, because I mean he makes a good point. I mean right now they have a hole at the starting spot, and if they don't bring Lucas Patrick back, But yeah, I think you got to do better than him anyway.
I agree.
You know?
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that's a huge priority right now. And I think safety was big. I think that was a big get.
I agree.
Getting Justin Reid. You know, so I think but they need help at all levels of their defense.
They do. They do. But
really do.
like when you're just like stacking the most important ones, you
But I
got,
also
you got
think
corner guard.
running back is a big position because I don't think AK is going to be here longer than another year or so. And yeah, I definitely think he's been dropping off anyway. You know, the analytics show that. So I think running back, I mean, I would love for him to draft the Genty kid. I think that'd be huge. Matter of fact, column coming soon. Seriously, because think about like, get somebody that they look. I'm not completely into just get the fans excited, but like they could use some of that.
I agree with that. I actually wouldn't hate a Genty pick with
because
number
I
9.
think he's got a high ceiling too, like high floor. I should say high floor. He's a guy that I think is going to be a really good player for a long time, and they have to get that at number 9.
It would be a luxury pick, right?
Yeah,
because they've really just everywhere on this roster that needs help, and to draft a running back when you've got needs everywhere else is it's a risk. But I think when you're looking at what this team needs, they need somebody who they can pretty much guarantee is going to be a stud.
Right. Do you take a guard at 9? Or do you
I don't
trade down? I mean, this team could trade down. Would they ever do that?
They won't do it.
I know.
I think you could take a guard at 9, but like it'd have to be somebody like Will Campbell, right? Who is somebody who can play tackle, maybe in the NFL, but maybe his best fit is guard.
Makes a lot of sense.
And if you do that, like then you just pick, okay, which out of Will Campbell or Trevor Penning, which one's a better tackle? Because we think both of these guys could play guard.
Right.
That's the way I would look at it.
I like that. I like that point. I mean, Campbell would be great, I think, because then you've got flexibility and figure out who can play where. But I also think trading down wouldn't be bad for this team where they're at right now. I'm telling you, man.
Yeah, I know.
I know they don't do it, but they got to
drum for years.
They got to alter that damn strategy. They've been doing this for a while. And it's not working. Like that's not working.
You know what they're not going to do? Alter that strategy.
I know it's a mistake in my opinion. Where they're at now. Now, when you're Drew Brees, 2020, 19, you're trying to win it all. Yeah, go all in. Get an impact guy. You have to get. I get it. Then not now. That's not where they're at now. They need more young, talented players. And this draft is a good draft in a lot of positions. I mean, that's one thing I would say going against the running back idea is talking to some of the people that know this draft. They say it's a deep running back class.
It is.
So you could maybe get a good player there lower. Look at what happened with Kamara. It's a good example.
Yeah. Okay, so I think I would also put corner first on my list. Just because I don't think they have their starting 3 yet, and I don't think I would do it in the draft. So like I don't know exactly how they'd fit that.
Yeah, they did.
Fill that.
Pull that out of their hat.
Right. I mean, I just don't think that. I don't think they'd do it at number 9. Is what I'd say.
Right.
Like I think they could.
You could get one in the second round.
They could still get a starting corner in the second round, like they did last year with Cooley
No doubt.
McKinstry. But I'm with you on that. I think Yadam is a good player. He's a good player to have on your team. He's somebody who can start in a pinch. I don't think you want to go into a season with him as your starting corner. And as we've seen with this team time and time again, they go into the season with lots and lots of depth there, and then the next thing you know, they're signing Chris Harris off the street to be their starting corner. So it's something you have to be more than 3 deep.
Right.
So I think that to me is number 1. Guard, I think they could if they wanted to take use 2 of their draft picks, like mid-round draft picks, late day 2, early day 3 on guards, and find a starting caliber guard in the draft. It's risky, but I think that's possible. I think there's guys that will be there in those spots where they could get a starter in the draft, and I think I would rather do that than pay $8, $9, $10 million a year for a guard.
I would agree with you, but I don't know. Nick Saldiveri hasn't panned out. He was the 4th rounder. I mean, I just think that there are some intrigue. Like Brandon Sheriff was with the Jags. Down year by his standards, but historically a very good player. Still had some, I think he was like top 5 in like least pressures allowed last year I saw the other day. Still solid. Like you could sign him to be your right guard and then move Cesar Ruiz to left guard. That's why I was asking before the show started if Cesar Ruiz had ever played left. Mekhi Becton, I wouldn't mind spending more at guard, specifically also because you have cheaper tackles on their rookie deal still. I think that you could have some flexibility at investing at the position, even if it is just like a 1 year, 15, 30. I would rather spend higher there than receiver or even corner. But I think there are actually some interesting veteran corners still available too. Like, got another Washington guy, Kendall Fuller.
I know we're late on the
Played in Miami, but he's a zone cornerback that has inside out ability that I think he'd be a good fit here. Asante Samuel Jr., he wasn't in Los Angeles with Staley, right?
Yeah, I think he was.
Definitely.
Yeah,
I think
he
he
was.
drafted him.
Okay, no, my bad. Another one that, could bring some familiarity then. So those are the two, I think, top corners. I was just looking at Pro Football.
Yeah, no, those
Focus
guys
is
make
less during
sense.
the break, yeah.
I mean, I think now we're getting into clearly the second level or phase of free agency, right?
Sure.
Where,
For sure.
yeah, so and
Yeah.
I think that's where they're going to probably bring in some more. I don't think they're done. Do y'all?
No.
Definitely don't.
No. Yeah. So.
Then they've been clearing room too, right? They've got some room now. Where are we at? Cap.
Oh God.
God,
Okay, don't.
I mean, but
It's
they've
just
been
hard because of the-
they've been working. We saw Kai Harley in the press conference today. Surprised he had time to break free because he's been doing so much work getting that cap to where they can make some of these moves.
Yeah. Okay. So you had guard,
Receiver,
corner,
but yeah.
you had corner, guard,
Receiver, yeah,
receiver.
or maybe running back.
I'll go corner, guard, receiver, and I'm with you. They need an edge. They need an edge who's not a 280-pound edge or 60.
Yeah, you're on the
edge.
you're on the smaller edge guy. It's been your push for a while.
I tell you who I really like,
Who's that?
and I think they should
You
seriously
always fall
consider
in love
taking
with
him
somebody.
at 9 is Jalen Walker out of Georgia.
Oh yeah.
I think he's got like stud written all over him.
Why do you like him?
Because he's interchangeable. Look, he's on the smaller side. He's like 6'1", 245.
That's real small.
It's small, but he is a super athlete who can play off ball or on the edge. And he did it at a high level in college for a big time program. And I think that he would be like a great piece in this Brandon Staley defense. 9 might be a little rich for him. I don't know, but and I don't know if the Saints are going to be able to overlook the fact that he's like not the prototypical size. But I really like him. I think he could be like. I think that's a good range in this draft to be looking for somebody as an edge defender. I think there's going to be a lot of guys there that they could pick from.
Yeah, it didn't feel like other than the Penn State guy. There's after him. It kind of seems like it's
Kind of wide open.
Pick your flavor kind of guy.
Right. Yeah. There's the other kid from Georgia, Michael Williams.
Yeah.
Sounds right. Yeah.
But he's more of that
Yeah,
kind of traditional size. I just hope for our sake that they don't draft Shamar Stewart, who might end up being a really good player, but he's just like has Marcus Davenport 2.0 written all over.
Yeah,
him.
he's kind of the same Peyton Turner. That same mix.
Big guy, run fast. I don't know. I don't know if we need to do that when we get here.
Congrats
Peyton
to
Turner
the
gets
Chicago
like-
Bears for drafting.
What are we gonna do if Peyton Turner gets like 12 sacks this year for the Cowboys?
Yeah.
Yeah,
It becomes the Zach
he has
Bond.
the Trey Hendrickson glow up, and everybody's like, "Why'd they let him go?" Yeah. Well, I think in the moment when Trey Hendrickson left, I think everybody was upset about him leaving, and they wanted him to re-sign him, or wanted them to re-sign him, and they probably should have, because I think that was the year they signed Andres Pete to the contract.
I think the thing, what I was told back then was that they had to make a decision between Marcus Williams, franchising him, and I was wholeheartedly for Trey Hendrickson. Not that I'm, revisionist history here, but I just think defensive end edge is more valuable than a safety.
Agreed.
And they could have gotten that done, but alas. But Trey Hendrickson's going to be on the market, right? Has nobody signed him?
Well, he's
on a
under
contract,
but
but
they
would have to trade him.
Yeah, looking for a trade.
Going to trade? I don't think that's an option here. Probably
Not.
Probably not.
Okay, I think that's a good conversation. A good place to wrap this conversation up.
Yeah.
Is a little look back at previous failures in Saints organization history. We appreciate all y'all for watching. If you are watching on our YouTube stream, please like the podcast, recommend it to your friends. Give us 5 stars. Comment on how cool Jeff Duncan's shoes are.
Easily the best shoes.
If you're listening on Apple or Spotify or wherever you get your podcast, we thank you. We will be back next week, maybe with some more news to talk about. Who knows? I mean, probably gonna be busy all weekend working on this stuff. That's okay. That's why we're here doing this. We appreciate you guys listening. I've been joined by Matthew Paris, Jeff Duncan, and our producer Norman Bell. Thank you all very much, and we will catch you all next week.